Hey everybody, welcome to the guided assignment for chapter 21. Um, I guess we'll just jump into it here. For me, the easiest way to do this is with Excel. Certainly you could do it with just a calculator if you wanted to. Anyway, so the Clan Furniture Company manufactures and sells oak tables and chairs. Price and cost data are below, so here's all our price and cost data. And then we have 3 sales reps, and they want us to calculate the contribution margin. But before they do that, they want us just to calculate the number of tables and chairs each person sold. So the easiest way for me is to set this up exactly as it is set up in Pearson here. So tables sold, chairs per table, and total chairs. And then the 3 sales reps, Alan, Bill, and Colleen. So this first part's pretty easy because in essence, we just have to take this info it gives us, and it says, let's see, Alan sold 110 tables and 4 chairs each. So 110 tables, 4 chairs per table. And then Bill sold 50 tables, 6 chairs per table. And Colleen sold 70 tables and 8 chairs per table. So then to find my total chairs sold, I would just take the number of tables sold times the chairs per table. And then I can just fill that down. So now I know all of that info. So then I just enter it into my Pearson account. So Alan sold 110 tables, 4 chairs per table, and 440 total chairs. Bill sold 50 tables, 6 chairs per table, so 300 total chairs. And Colleen, 70 tables, 8 chairs per table, so 560 total chairs. So that wasn't too bad. So now they want us to calculate the contribution margin for each. So the contribution margin is we'll have to figure out our revenue minus our variable costs. That'll give us our contribution margin. So instead of setting it up exactly like this, I think for ease of use in Excel, I'm going to set it up this way. I'm going to say revenue. That's our net. That'll be the net sales revenue that each person created, and the variable cost, and then our contribution margin. So Alan's revenue, so we can see right here that tables sell for $1,000 and chairs for $100. So Alan's revenue is going to equal the number of tables he sold times 1,000 plus the number of chairs he sold, the total number of chairs he sold, times 100. That'll be the total revenue generated by Alan. And now that I have that formula in, I can just fill it down, and that'll tell me the revenue generated by Bill and by Colleen. My variable cost is going to equal my variable manufacturing cost, so 710 plus my sales commission, which is 90. So that amount times the number of tables sold. So that'll be my variable cost on my tables, plus the variable cost on my chairs, which is the $21 in variable manufacturing costs, plus the $9 in sales commission, times the number of chairs sold. So that'll be my variable costs. Again, once I have that formula in there, I can just fill that down, and that should work. Then my contribution margin is going to just be my revenue minus my variable cost. again. So this is to be a little bit different because I put them in. I guess I just left them in the same order as before. So I'm gonna have to look carefully. So Alan, his sales revenue was 154,000, and then his variable costs were 101,200, and his contribution margin was 52,800. Bill had revenue of 80,000, variable costs of 49,000, and contribution margin of 31,000. I think, did I do that right? 80, yes. And then Colleen had revenue of 126,000 and variable costs of 72,800 and contribution margin of 53,200. All right, now they want us to calculate the contribution margin ratio. And the contribution margin ratio is just the contribution margin divided by the sales revenue. So to find our contribution margin ratio, we just take the contribution margin, divide it by the sales revenue. And then it says it wants it to the 100th percent. So I'm just going to have it show me as a percentage with 2 decimals. So now I can do my contribution margin for Alan. It's 52,800. The sales revenue for Alan was 154,000. The contribution margin ratio was 34.29%. For Bill, contribution margin is 31,000. Sales revenue is 80,000. And my ratio 38.75%. And for Colleen, contribution margin 53,200. And the sales revenue was 126,000 for a ratio of 42.22%. All right, so blank is the sales rep with the highest contribution margin ratio. So that's going to be Colleen. And then they want to know why. And probably because she sold the most chairs, and chairs have a higher contribution margin compared to the tables. And so that's the end of the first problem. And now we're on to the second problem, which is the Eden Pool Cleaning Service. They provide they provide pool cleaning services to residential customers. They have 3 employees, each assigned to specific customers. The company considers each employee's territory as a business segment. The company incurs variable costs that include the employee's wages, pool chemicals, gas for the service vans, etc. All right, so calculate the contribution margin ratio for each business segment. So I'm just going to start with setting this up again. So our 3 employees are Benson, Morton, and Philip with an F, F-I-L-I-P. And we know contribution margin ratio is going to be our contribution margin divided by our revenue. So contribution margin and service revenue. So we can look at the data here. You can see that Benson had a contribution margin of $1,890 and service revenue of $2,700. Morton had a contribution margin of $3,600 on revenue of $7,200, and Philippe had contribution margin of $1,350 on revenue of $4,500. Okay, so to find our contribution margin ratio, we just take contribution margin divided by service revenue. So now we're ready to fill in our information here. So Benson had 1890, 700, and that was 70%. Morton 3,600, 7,200 is 50%, and Philippe 1,350, 4,500, which is 30%. All right. Now they want us to find our service revenue per customer, our variable cost per customer, and our contribution margin per customer. So it tells us the number of customers. Oh, dang it. Benson had 30, Morton had 80, and Philippe had 50. So to find our service revenue per customer, we do just that. We just take the service revenue divided by the number of customers. So each one did $90 per customer. Then it wants our variable cost per customer. We don't have our variable costs on there yet. We'll have to enter those, and they're given to us here. Variable costs for Benson were $810, for Morton 3,600, and for Philippe 3,150. So our variable cost per customer is, again, just that. Take the variable cost, divide it by the number of customers. And then finally, they want our contribution margin per customer. So we can either take our revenue per customer minus our variable cost per customer. That's one way to get contribution margin per customer. The other is to take our contribution margin and divide it by the number of customers. So that would work as well. All right, so there's all the data we need to fill in the answer here. So Benson's service revenue per customer was 90. Variable cost per customer is 27. Contribution margin 63. Morton, 90. Revenue per customer, 45 variable cost per customer, and 45 contribution margin per customer. And then Philippe, 90 in revenue, 63 in variable costs, 27. All right, so now they want to know which business segment is most profitable. So I can look right here at the data and see that it's Morton. Right, Morton is definitely making more profit than the others, a higher contribution margin. Benson has a higher contribution margin ratio. So let's see. I'm not sure if they want us to do in pure profit sense, a higher contribution margin is better, but I'm not sure what they're looking for with that. So I'm going to try Morton because they have the highest contribution margin. And we're going to say it has the most profit because I have a feeling they're going to want us to say Benson on this, even though I don't think profitable was the right thing. Because so they all have the same revenue per customer, so that can't be it. Contribution margin per customer being lowest wouldn't be good. So I think what they're getting at is the variable cost per customer is the lowest. And so they're going to want me to say Benson was the most profitable. Let's see. Yep. That's not true. So Benson has the best contribution margin ratio, which means if Benson had more customers, they would be more profitable than Morton, but in pure profitability terms. Anyway, so that's a semantics argument. Recognize that what they're looking for here is the one with the best contribution margin ratio. So possible reasons, profitability of the business segment. So they're asking us to look for the reasons that could lead to this. So reducing the amount of pool chemicals used in service calls for the most profitable business segment, that could be a reason, right? Like part of the reason this cost could be low is because he's not using as much chemicals. Revenue per customer doesn't play into this because revenue per customer is the same for all of them. Lower employee wages could lead to the most profitable business segment for sure, but higher employee wages wouldn't do that. Lengthy routes with longer drive times allowing fewer customers would not be a reason behind our most profitable segment. Better routes with shorter drive times allowing more customers to be served, that would definitely be one reason why it could be more profitable. Employees in the most profitable business segments cutting corners when performing service calls, that could definitely be it, so they're using less hours. Higher revenue per customer, again, we know revenue per customer is the same for all of them, so that's not going to be one of the reasons. And then we're supposed to look at the possible side effects of the items identified in the preceding step. So we'll look at each one that we identified, reducing the amount of pool chemicals used in service calls for the most profitable business segment. So that could lead to increased service costs because of reduced pool chemical usage, causing poor water quality and additional service calls. C, lower employee wages in the most profitable business segment could lead to increased employee turnover because of low wages. Better routes with short drive times, allowing more customers to be served. It would be less fuel and maintenance costs because of efficient routes. And employees in the most profitable business segment cutting corners could lead to dissatisfied customers because of inadequate service. And there we go. So there's the entire guided assignment. I hope it is useful to you, and good luck.